On Valentine's Day, my girlfriend posted a marriage advertisement for me on Moments. Above is a beautiful photo of me, with the caption, "Whoever took Poppy Ernest." I gave him a big cotton jacket, a stainless steel kettle, a basin bigger than his face, and a bag of rice. Half an hour later, my boyfriend, who had broken up for more than 4 years, knocked on my door and said, "Reunited. My house lacks a basin bigger than my face. Valentine's Day is coming, and I can't stand my girlfriend and her boyfriend playing dog abuse in front of me all day long," and exclaiming, "I want a boyfriend too." My best friend said that this is not simple, and posted a circle of friends in front of me, with the text, "Someone took Poppy Ernest away," and I gave him a big cotton jacket, a stainless steel kettle, a basin bigger than his face, and a bag of rice. I was stunned by this unpretentious operation. Who knew that I was just talking high? Looking at the red and green padded jacket on it, I suddenly felt that I was far away from taking off the single. Half an hour later, my boyfriend of more than 4 years, Toby Jerry, who had broken up with me, stood in front of my house and said solemnly, "Poppy Ernest, are you getting back together? I've recently renovated my new home, and I just need a basin bigger than your face." New home renovation. Toby Jerry back home. When did you get back? Also bought a house. I looked at Toby Jerry's angular face for a few seconds. After listening to his words, I pulled out a smirk and slammed the door shut in front of him. Don't you know the simple truth that good horses don't eat back grass? And why does this basin compare to my face? Closing the door, I looked at my girlfriend on the couch who was smiling and leaning back, and suddenly reacted. You already knew that Toby Jerry had returned to China. I fell in love with Toby Jerry in college, and I chased him. Toby Jerry of college is not easy to chase, and he is a Kowloon flower. I put a lot of effort into romance and finally won someone in the first semester of my sophomore year. Toby Jerry and I also got into our senior year, but we broke up before we graduated. I leaned back on the couch and closed my eyes and didn't speak. My mind was stirred up by the sudden appearance of Toby Jerry, and all the feelings came to me for a moment. The girlfriend smiled weakly and finally told the whole story. Toby Jerry returned home last week, and the two don't know when they added their contact information. I stared at my girlfriend with a fierce look on her face, and she winked innocently. I don't know anything. I just posted a circle of friends. I'm more irritable. What does Toby Jerry mean by that? See the circle of friends deliberately provoking me. The next morning I was woken up by the sound of talking, the grinding of boxes on the floor. I yawned and opened the door, and Toby Jerry, dressed in a simple black sweatshirt and carrying a small cake, was standing in front of my next-door neighbor's house. The expression was very polite. "I'm sorry, I just moved here. There are a lot of things, and I made a noise to you." Toby Jerry was so good-looking, and he handed the cake with an apologetic smile in his face, which made people even if they had a very bad wake-up gas. I stood in the doorway and looked at Toby Jerry's side face with a slight distraction, and it seemed like a long time ago that I could see Toby Jerry when I got out of bed. The neighbor's door was closed again, and Toby Jerry walked casually towards me with his hands in his pockets. Wait a minute. New home renovation. I looked behind Toby Jerry, and sure enough, I saw 2 suitcases, 6 large cardboard boxes. As far as I know Toby Jerry, the 2 suitcases are full of clothes, and the cardboard boxes are full of his shoes. So when Toby Jerry said the new home yesterday, was it my door? Toby Jerry stood still in front of me and looked me up and down for a moment, his eyes looking like he was looking at the goods on the table. I froze because I was wearing pajamas now. My face was not washed, my makeup was not made, and my hair was a mess without looking. Toby Jerry had just opened his mouth to say a word, and I slammed the door shut in front of him again. After closing the door, I hurriedly washed my face, put on makeup, changed clothes, and cleaned up the house. I'm not here for Toby Jerry, but I can't lose face in front of my ex. As soon as I finished cleaning up, the doorbell rang, and I opened the door, and sure enough, Toby Jerry was standing in front of my house with a clear box of strawberry cakes. He leaned against the wall and held out his finger to make a 2 in front of me. "Twice, Poppy Ernest. You've locked me behind the door twice." I smiled. "I'll try to close 17 or 18 more times." Toby Jerry smiled noncommittally and nodded my forehead with his free hand. You haven't seen you for so long. Why don't you invite me in, and sit? I'm glad I just cleaned the house, so it doesn't look too awkward now. Toby Jerry was more like a master than me, sitting on the couch and slowly looking at the living room. When I looked at the doll on another small sofa, I was shocked. How could I forget this thing? Toby Jerry's gaze casually glanced over the doll, as if he didn't care. My nervous heart suddenly cooled, and I couldn't tell if I was lost or angry. What you thought was important may have been packaged and deleted by someone else. The cake was placed on the other side of the table, and no one took the initiative to touch it. I put a glass of water in front of Toby Jerry and said irritably, I'll leave if it's okay. I still have a job. How do you get along with your ex? I've thought about meeting Toby Jerry before, but there's no one like where I can sit and talk in peace. I opened my phone and swiped around, not wanting to see Toby Jerry. The living room was silent for a while, except for the sound of the water dispenser. Just as I couldn't help but try to get someone, Toby Jerry suddenly smiled, stood up and walked up to me. Before I could react, Toby Jerry trapped me in his arms, with his hands on the armrests of the couch, one leg bent and casually squeezed between my legs. Toby Jerry has a single skin eye, and he always looks faint and a little fierce when he looks at people with his eyes slightly down. He looked at me for a long time, then turned his head to look at the little doll beside him. He lowered his head close to me, and a hand moved from the armrest to my lips. He pressed his hand hard, then moved it to my frowning brow, and his tone was faint. Don't frown. I found out as soon as I came in. Refers to the little doll. I froze, and suddenly I was a little embarrassed, as if someone had discovered an unsavory secret. Toby Jerry's fingers moved to my chin, and after looking at me for a long time, his hand leaned down to me with a slight effort. The overhead lights were a bit dazzling, and I was kissed by Toby Jerry with his chin raised. When he fell in love with Toby Jerry in college, he loved kissing me. Toby Jerry didn't really use much effort at all, and I was able to break free easily. But smelling his familiar scent, the hand I put on his shoulder finally didn't push it away. After all, after breaking up, he still kept the doll he sent, and everything behind it seemed bluff no matter how you look at it. Dizzy. All I could hear was Toby Jerry's deep voice. Poppy Ernest, what I said yesterday about the compound is true. Now that I'm back, none of us can let go. That little doll, I've always remembered. Liar. It was obviously you who left back then. There was a tingling in my lips, and I was bitten by Toby Jerry. The pain raised the already tumbling desire to roll another degree, and Toby Jerry's fingers clasped tightly between my hands. Actually, I'm also a liar. The doll was originally in my bedroom, and I deliberately took it out and put it in the most prominent position. After Toby Jerry left, I couldn't recover for a long time, and it seemed as if something wasn't quite right. I wanted to pretend that nothing happened. After all, there were many things between me and him that I couldn't explain. As a result, the kiss just now seemed to irritate Toby Jerry, who rang my doorbell more than a dozen times in one night. The first time, he said he had just moved in and didn't bring shampoo or shower gel. The second time, he straightened his wet hair and said that he didn't have a hair dryer. The third and fourth times, there was no toilet paper for a while, and there were no towels for a while. Every time, Toby Jerry always finds a reason. The doorbell rang again, and I decided to ignore Toby Jerry. As a result, the goods persistently pressed again. I was afraid of disturbing the next door neighbor, so I couldn't bear to open the door with a dark face. And Toby Jerry outside the door bent his eyes and smiled very well behaved. I was shaken by this smile, and my original turbulent momentum suddenly weakened a lot. Poppy Ernest, the air conditioner is broken. I'm so cold. After saying that, he also cooperated with a sneeze. A minute later, I looked at Toby Jerry, who was sitting on the couch playing a game, and I almost wanted to wear it back and strangle myself in a daze. 2 years have passed. How can you let down your guard against Toby Jerry, who has always been coquettish and acting? When I was in college, people who didn't know Toby Jerry thought he was a very serious person. It was only after I fell in love with Toby Jerry for half a semester that I found out that Toby Jerry was a serious person on the surface, but he was actually very coquettish, and he was not very coquettish before, always with a calm face. doing some small movements that only I could see, sometimes quietly pinching my fingers and hooking my little finger. Now it's the whole expression, a pair of eyes wide open. How to look innocent and ingenious. It's really careless. I gritted my teeth. Get back when you're warm. Someone playing the game put their phone down and stood up. I'm a little shocked. Toby Jerry obediently. The next second, Toby Jerry walked to my small kitchen and looked, turned around and opened the refrigerator and took out 2 eggs. Do you want me 2 eggs before leaving? What are you doing? Toby Jerry's expression was innocent. I'm hungry. I forced myself not to look him in the eye. Are you hungry? My Chuan is willing to serve you. Toby Jerry doesn't know how to cook. Well, I haven't eaten in a day, and my stomach is a little upset right now. Toby Jerry's pitiful tone rang out, and I distinctly felt a nerve break in my heart. I struggled for 5 minutes, then resigned myself to my fate, and walked into the small kitchen with tomato and egg noodles. A bowl of tomato and egg noodles was served, and Toby Jerry's eyes lit up. After eating the noodles, Toby Jerry's lips were stained with a little soup, and his face was full of satisfaction. I was stunned for a few seconds, and suddenly I felt a little more real about Toby Jerry's return to China. I scolded myself for being unproductive, and then drove the person home in a distraught manner. We both tacitly didn't mention that kiss. When I came out of the shower, Weshit kept ringing, and it was a good colleague in the company, who was frantically sending me a message. She is an enthusiastic sister, who has always been very keen to help me draw the red line. Last week, she went to great lengths to find someone who met my requirements based on the reference standards I said, and asked me to meet with them tomorrow. My colleague was enthusiastic to help, and I couldn't live up to her kindness. So I got up early the next morning, put on a beautiful dress, put on makeup and went out. Toby Jerry's door was still closed, and I don't know if I was up or not. The blind date was at a dessert shop near my apartment. The subject is a very good-looking boy, very tall. Now it looks like it's about the same as what I said. As soon as the boy sat down, he smiled apologetically, and then spoke. I'm half an hour late. My sister won't be angry, right? The voice is very soft, with a coquettish tone. I was scared. In the second half, the boy asked a lot of questions, most of which were what the sister was doing now. Do you like this for small milk dogs? As soon as I answered, the boys applauded, giving me the illusion that I was giving an important speech. After this operation, the embarrassing society died and became myself. The strawberry mousse cake and chocolate milfoil were served, and I forked a small piece of cake and was about to eat it, when the boy coquettishly said, Sister, people like your strawberry cake more. As he spoke, he stared at the cake on my fork. I shook my hand so hard that the cake fell. Didn't you just order your own milfoil? The boy looked at me expectantly, and I struggled inwardly for 3 seconds to push the strawberry mousse cake in front of me. Let's switch. After another half an hour, I pushed the boy's invitation to the playground under the pretext that the company was in a hurry. As soon as I went out, I told my colleagues euphemistically that this section should not be successful. Walking all the way to the elevator of the apartment, my colleague sent 2 voices in confusion. There was no one in the elevator, and I played out. Hey, no, I'm looking for this according to the standards you said. Aren't you a boy who likes to be spoiled? This boy is very coquettish. I was smiling and just about to reply, when I suddenly noticed a person standing at the elevator door. Toby Jerry. Toby Jerry was obviously just out of bed. His hair was messy, and he was carrying a large bag of breakfast in his left hand, including xiao long bao, soy milk, fried dough sticks, and pancakes. I remember that there are no such stalls around this community. Where did Toby Jerry go to buy it? And can he eat so much alone? As the elevator door was about to close, a hand suddenly reached out to stop it, and Toby Jerry lifted the breakfast and tilted his head and asked me, Poppy Ernest, do you eat xiao long bao? I suddenly remembered what I had told my colleagues about the reference standard for love. Be taller, good-looking, and even better if you can be coquettish occasionally. I subconsciously refused. You eat it yourself. Toby Jerry thought about it, as he carried the xiao long bao. Well, no, I want to eat it with you. I don't have an appetite for you, in your absence. Toby Jerry, you're normal. The smile on Toby Jerry's face widened. Don't you like coquettish boys? Am I not good enough? Who likes coquettish boys? On this floor, there were originally only me and my next door neighbor, but now there is a Toby Jerry. In the evening, I was just finishing cooking and was about to find a movie to eat and watch, when the doorbell rang. Outside the door, Toby Jerry was wiping his hair with a towel, his eyes wet as he looked over me to the food on the table behind him. The intent in his eyes was obvious. I knew I couldn't let Toby Jerry in anymore, and when I re-met him, things were out of my control. Toby Jerry waited for a while, and when he saw that I blocked the door, and didn't mean to let him in, he raised his eyebrows and said, "You ate my buns this morning, and now I don't want to have dinner too much." "Right. When did I eat your buns? You forced them into me." "Right." Toby Jerry smiled, suddenly put the towel down, and said as he walked back, "Hey, I ran out of money to buy buns this morning, and now I don't have a penny, and I can't order takeout. Isn't it natural to pay off my debts, and eat my buns to pay me back for dinner?" The tone was very pitiful, and aggrieved. The next door neighbor heard the movement and opened the door, and came out just to hear this sentence. "I can't afford to lose this person," and pulled Toby Jerry back. 5 minutes later, Toby Jerry sat in my seat, and stuffed rice into his mouth as he watched the next meal I had found. I was so angry that I gritted my teeth and said, "This is the last time, Toby Jerry." Toby Jerry looked at me, swallowed the food in his mouth, and muttered, These ribs are delicious." A week before Valentine's Day, my girlfriend asked me to bring Toby Jerry, and she brought her boyfriend, and we went to dinner together. I asked her, confused, why should I bring Toby Jerry on Valentine's Day? Hey, didn't he come to you to get back together that day? My best friend understood the embarrassment and said, "I thought he had moved to the opposite door of you now, and the two of you had already reconciled." I was stunned, and some facts that I had deliberately ignored were so clearly laid out in front of me. "I've broken up with Toby Jerry, so what's the point now? Friends, or ex?" It was the most terrifying, and I couldn't even find a proper identity to describe him. The only thing that is certain, is that I don't want to be friends with Toby Jerry at all. But we are no longer 17 or 18 years old, and we don't demand a result for everything. Valentine's Day is Monday. Love is someone else's. It has nothing to do with me. I went out early in the morning to take the subway to work. There were movers in the corridor carrying several large boxes to the door of Toby Jerry, but there was no Toby Jerry. As soon as I entered the office, I felt pink bubbles all over the room. My sister, who helped me connect with the match, sat next to me with a box of chocolates. "No, my husband bought it. I'll give you a box." Her face was full of pity. "Wasn't that boy good before? He has a crush on you, and asked me for your contact information." Thinking of the boy I was on a blind date before, I couldn't help but tremble, and hurriedly said forget it. In the evening, a bouquet of flowers was sent over, and the manager was very considerate today, and asked everyone to hurry up to get off work and go on a date. I got off work early today. My girlfriend went on a date with my boyfriend, and the streets were full of young couples shopping hand in hand, and I thought that I would have nothing to do when I went home, so I got off the subway one stop in advance, planning to go shopping and go back. It occurred to me that Toby Jerry and I had a relationship on Valentine's Day. At that time, there was a dessert shop outside the university that was running an event to launch a new strawberry chocolate dessert, but only for couples. Please, dessert is my favorite. How can I be willing to be happy with this strawberry chocolate? The dessert shop is full of young couples, who come and go on dates, and there is really no single man to be found. I didn't give up, and continued to squat, looking through the glass window on the side of the strawberry chocolate inside, and my saliva was about to flow. It was at this time that Toby Jerry appeared, tall and long-legged, wearing a black short-sleeved shirt, a peaked cap, and a bottle of frozen mineral water in his hand. Damn, this man's appearance is too much to my liking. God help me, he's a man. When he was about to pass me, I grabbed his arm. I smiled and said, "Handsome, do me a favor." I pointed to the strawberry chocolates in the glass case of the dessert shop. Woo woo, the more I look at it, the more I want to eat. "Me, come in with me. How about I buy some dessert?" The other party turned his head and glanced at me. Understanding what I meant, he raised his eyebrows. and the tails of his narrow eyes were pulled up nicely. Oh, so what's the benefit of me helping you? No way. What benefits do you want? I couldn't help but say, how about I buy one for you? Just one, no more. Seeing that the number of cakes in the display case was getting smaller and smaller, I couldn't care about it, so I pulled him and walked inside. But why did you tell me that I had to kiss both men and women to buy this? Is that all? You like to eat dog food? The salesperson smiled and said, this is today's special event, and a kiss on the cheek is fine, although I don't mind. After all, it's the best of both worlds for me, and I can get a kiss from a handsome guy when I have dessert, but that doesn't mean the handsome guy doesn't mind. So I turned around with a little regret and pulled him out. The next second, my hand was pulled, and before I could react, my face was supported, and this person imprinted his mouth on the back of his hand by relying on the blind spot of the salesman's vision. From other angles, it looks like the two of us kissed the cheek. I was stunned and came back to my senses, only to hear the handsome guy's nice voice say, is this okay? I didn't come back until I left the dessert shop with the strawberry chocolate in my arms. The ice mineral water bottle in his hand formed a layer of mist, and then condensed into water droplets. It wasn't until the man walked a certain distance that I couldn't help but pull him forward, ask his name in his unmeaning eyes, and add his contact information. Ever since I was a child, I have been well aware of the fact that you have to work hard for whatever you want. After knowing that Toby Jerry was single, I chased him for a long time, and finally caught him up. Looking at the couples walking by, I couldn't help but think to myself, what is Toby Jerry doing now? I packed a Odin on the side of the road and went back to my apartment. The voice-activated lights on the floor came on, and I didn't see Toby Jerry, but I saw the girl crouching in Toby Jerry's doorway, short hair, wearing a nice sweater. There was a suitcase with a bouquet of flowers on it. Seeing that it was me, the eyes that had been lit up dimmed for a moment, and the voice was crisp. Hello, do you know Toby Jerry? A resident of 2026. I was stunned and nodded into the girl's bright eyes. Yes, great. You know what time he usually comes back at night, and I call him and no one answers. I shook my head, and the girl lowered her head a little lost. I really don't know what time Toby Jerry will be back in the evening. At this moment, I realized that Toby Jerry and I were far more than just 2 years apart. When the girl saw what I was holding, she happily said, "Whoa, this is Odin. I miss it." I was stunned and subconsciously asked, "Were you abroad before?" The girl nodded. 5 years in Canada. Canada, the country where Toby Jerry graduated from university. I couldn't help but wonder in my heart what Toby Jerry's relationship was with this girl. There was the sound of footsteps in the stairs, and I subconsciously turned my head to look. Toby Jerry gasped and held strawberry chocolate in his hand, the ribbon on the gift box already crooked. Toby Jerry didn't look at his girl, staring at me with grievances in his tone. "Why did you leave work early today?" I couldn't answer for a moment. The girl next to her slowly spoke. "Toby Jerry, do you know each other?" Toby Jerry turned to stare at her and nodded. His brow furrowed slightly. "Why are you here?" The girl smiled brightly. "You don't say a word to me when you come back. Isn't it just for Valentine's Day that I'm afraid that you will come back to see you alone and lonely?" Toby Jerry was silent with strawberry chocolate in his hand. The two actually look very good together, and the relationship in Canada should be very good. The girl came with a suitcase to stay with Toby Jerry for a while. I opened the door and isolated the girl's last words. "Toby Jerry, you're taking me in for a while." When I cleaned up and the Odin was already cold, I realized that I didn't seem to be too hungry. Seeing that the time is still early, adhering to the principle of not wasting it, I don't want to heat it up, and I plan to eat the Odin and go to sleep. I didn't realize it until the doorbell rang twice. Opening the door, there was Toby Jerry standing outside the door carrying a strawberry chocolate. He smiled a little tiredly. "I spent all my money to buy this strawberry chocolate, so it's okay to exchange this for that Odin with you." I was stunned, and subconsciously looked at his closed door and empty hallway. What about the girl? Isn't it going to be at Toby Jerry's house? I came back to my senses. "I don't like to eat it." "Why did you buy it?" Toby Jerry just looked at me and didn't speak. "It's like a game, and we all know the answer." I felt like someone was smothered in water, and I couldn't breathe. I looked up at Toby Jerry. Toby Jerry, do you remember when we broke up? No one spoke in the hallway for a long time, and the voice-activated lights overhead dimmed, except for a little light coming out of my living room. I forced myself not to see. Toby Jerry, you left the country without saying anything. Remember, Odin is cold. I've lost it. I can't change your strawberry chocolate. Toby Jerry didn't say a word until the door was closed. I admit that I have an element of anger, but I can't control myself. 4 years doesn't seem like a long time, at least not long enough to make me forget Toby Jerry. I never met Toby Jerry again. His door was closed, and no one from the moving company had ever been here. Like Toby Jerry never came. Like 2026, never came to the household. I still go to and from work every day, and when I have nothing to do, I ask my girlfriend to sing and eat hot pot. Until one day, I received a message from my best friend, saying that I had booked a table in Yongkui to go to dinner together. Yongkui is a restaurant that I often go to with her. The environment is very good, and the food is very suitable for my taste. I didn't doubt him, so I changed my clothes and painted my makeup. When I arrived, I realized that this was an ordinary meal. It's a dinner for Toby Jerry to clean up the dust and celebrate his move to a new home. I didn't arrive too early, and there were already more than half of the people in the private room. Most of them I know and know about my relationship with Toby Jerry. As soon as they saw me, many people's expressions were a little unnatural, and the atmosphere was a little awkward for a while. My best friend didn't dare to look at me when she looked at the sky and the earth with a weak heart, so I pinched the back of the person's neck and smiled gently. Yes, turn your elbow out. My girlfriend smiled flatteringly and leaned into my ear. Poppy Ernest, believe me, I said no at first, but he gave too much. I was about to say something when the waiter came to the private room with a few people and saved the suffocating atmosphere. Someone yelled, Toby Jerry, you're the last to treat. Toby Jerry wears a black jacket. His hair seems to have grown longer, and he carries a few desserts in his hand. Behind him was the girl who was squatting at his door that day. The girl changed into a pink sweatshirt, painted makeup, and had a sweet smile on her face. A large circle of people in the private room turned their gaze back to me again. My girlfriend leaned into my ear. I've already inquired for you in advance. This girl was met by Toby Jerry when he went to Canada. I guess I like Toby Jerry, and now I'm chasing Toby Jerry back home. But I'm sure Toby Jerry doesn't have that idea about her. I wondered, how do you know? The girlfriend looked unfathomable and stopped talking. It dawned on me that this thing must be hiding something from me. Toby Jerry's burning gaze looked at me, and for a moment I was a little overwhelmed. He walked up to me and placed the dessert in his hand on the table in front of me, but said nothing. Everyone was heckling, and I was a little embarrassed. What's going on with this Toby Jerry? I was about to speak, but the girl behind Toby Jerry laughed loudly. Come on, everyone come to eat this little cake. I went with Toby Jerry to buy it for everyone. The atmosphere in the private room came alive with these words. The hand I was holding the cake retracted. I tried to lower my sense of existence and bow my head to eat. I really like the food in this restaurant. Out of the corner of his eye, I caught a glimpse of Toby Jerry drinking with his good brother sitting next to him. The last dish was served, and a dish of stewed tofu with fish head was placed in front of Toby Jerry. I was stunned, and almost reflexively wanted to get up. The next second, someone quickly turned the turntable. Hey, turn the fish away from Toby Jerry. He is allergic to seafood, and he accidentally ate it when he got high in a while. I paused to get up slightly, and then sat back down as if nothing had happened. Forgot that the roulette wheel can be turned. After eating, everyone was not happy, and I went home first on the pretext of working overtime tomorrow. But half an hour later, Toby Jerry, who was supposed to be at the bar, collapsed drunk on my doorstep. On the way back, I bought a beer at a convenience store. Actually, I won't be working overtime tomorrow, but I really don't want to go, and my heart feels like someone has rubbed and squashed countless times throughout the night. It's so sour that I can't breathe a little. I leaned back on the couch and watched TV, and drank as I wondered if Toby Jerry was going to be with that girl in the future. Beautiful, attentive, and a good match for him. After drinking too much, my brain was dizzy, and my phone rang for a long time, and I didn't want to move until the doorbell is ringed. My mind moved slightly, and I suddenly remembered how Toby Jerry had knocked on my door a dozen times that night. Opening the door, Toby Jerry stood in the doorway, panting and with red eyes from the corners of his eyes. I was stunned, and before I could speak, I was pushed by Toby Jerry, and I was defenseless and let go of the doorknob. The next second, the door closed behind Toby Jerry. Toby Jerry looked at me for a long time, then reached out and hugged me. The gentle smell of wine hit my ears and made me tingle a little. The smell of alcohol on his body was mixed with the smell of wine in the room at this time, and the taste was really not good. Toby Jerry hugged me so tightly that I didn't reach out to push him or hug him back. After hugging for a long time, Toby Jerry spoke again. You were a liar. 2 years ago. Was it really what I wanted to go? He complained in his tone. You're the same as before. Didn't I just say I wanted to get back together with you when I knocked on your door that day? He must have been drunk, and a sober Toby Jerry wouldn't have said it, and a sober Toby Jerry wouldn't shed tears. A damp heat came from my shoulder, my eyes widened slightly, and my hands unconsciously hugged him back. The rest was out of my control, and I was pressed against the couch by Toby Jerry, who kissed me down the forehead. I didn't struggle, I let him move. I still feel hot in my shoulder, almost burning to my heart. When I woke up the next day, I was woken up by an itch. Toby Jerry was rubbing his hand over my lips. I was sore, and I wanted to scold him when I opened my mouth. When I opened my mouth, I found that my voice was hoarse, and the word roll was not imposing at all. I knocked his hand off and turned around, and the next second Toby Jerry came up again, trapping me with his foot. Toby Jerry was visibly happy. I'm not rolling. I'm asleep. I'm responsible. He's so annoying. I don't want to pay attention to him, and I'm still angry. I closed my eyes and listened to Toby Jerry explain behind me. He said he didn't let the girl stay at his house that night, and that he had helped her find a hotel. He and she met in Canada, but he assured that they had not spent more than 4 hours alone in the past 2 years. I'm busy with family affairs these days, and I'm begging my girlfriend for help. After a long silence, Toby Jerry suddenly said, Uncle, is he doing well now? I suddenly remembered what Toby Jerry had complained about last night. 2 years ago, neither of us actually said we broke up. For as long as I can remember, the neighbors on the side of the small street where I lived always looked at me with sympathy in their eyes. When my dad picked it up, my impression of my biological parents was actually very weak. He was a nouveau riche on that street, and his wife had money but died of illness, and he couldn't share his happiness with him. I wandered the side streets for a few days before he picked them up. He didn't have a high level of education, so I took his surname and gave me the name, Poppy Ernest, the heroine of the hit TV series. He picked me up and gave me a home, food and clothing, so I can't understand the way those people look at me, as if I was lost by my biological parents and picked up by such a person, and I should live in misery all day long. I don't. I live a wanton life, and I think I'm no different from other children. I have what they have. My dad was very kind to me, even though he was thick and didn't tie my braids well, and often forgot what grade I was in. But he was the one who picked me up. Until I was in high school, he was tempted to drink and gamble. He stayed away from home all night, and when he came back, he was drunk and took money. During that time, he became moody, but there was so much money. For a long time, people always came to my house to collect debts. The neighbors on the side of the street gloated, and I didn't know what to do. Finally, one day when he was about to go out to gamble again, I stopped him by holding his wife's urn and taking a knife at the door. His face was covered with scars from being beaten, and I sat on the couch and smoked all night, and my eyes were red, and I was shaking all the time. The process of quitting gambling was very painful. He put all the money in a card for me to hold, and the rest of the money opened a supermarket in this small street. Until I went to college, he rarely went out to gamble, so I went to school with peace of mind. I have to go to college, I have to make money, and I have to provide for him in the future. It wasn't until his senior year that he stepped into this path again. I rushed back overnight, and he seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, sitting silently on the couch and smoking. I just asked him, why did you go again? I don't believe he'll gamble again. He was silent for a long time, and then suddenly he cursed. I was lied to. His smoking hands were shaking. This time the amount is huge, and we don't have much money left. It's like a vicious circle. Selling the supermarket and using all the money is still a small part of it, but the house can't be sold. That's the guarantee of his future life. I rushed back to school to get my hands on this, only to hear that Toby Jerry was in the hospital. I don't know how the debt collectors knew about my relationship with Toby Jerry. I left in such a hurry that I only left Toby Jerry a word to wait for me. At that time, I rented a house because of my off-campus internship. Toby Jerry was blocked when he came to the rental house to wait for me. How could he alone beat the man who had been on the road all year round? When he was seriously injured and alarmed his parents, they looked at me with pity on my face, and a little blame, thinking that Toby Jerry was still in a hospital bed at this time. I hated myself. They told me they were preparing for Toby Jerry to go abroad. I moved my fingers and whispered, "Does Toby Jerry know?" All they told me was that if I knew it or not, they would pay for Toby Jerry to fill the hole for me, if they made it out of the country. I was silent for a long time, and finally shook my head. If Toby Jerry wants to leave, then I won't stop him. But if he doesn't want to go, I couldn't go any longer. Lowered my head, and covered my eyes with the back of my hand. "Auntie, I'm graduating soon. I can make money. If I can't do it, I'll take out a loan, and I must make up for this hole. As long as the hole is filled, those people will never come to me again, and Toby Jerry will not be implicated." But they were silent. Even then, I didn't break up with Toby Jerry. I know I'm selfish to hurt Toby Jerry like this and still want to keep him around. Toby Jerry wasn't a bargaining chip, and I shouldn't have given him up for a swap. I really like him. I gave up my dream company, went to a more lucrative job, and went to work part-time on the weekends. At that time, I always thought that I could hold everything I wanted in the palm of my hand. I wanted to see Toby Jerry, but his parents wouldn't let me in. I didn't see Toby Jerry until I was discharged from the hospital. Until one day, Toby Jerry sneaked out to see me, and the wound on his right cheek was still not healed, and his leg was limping and his face was pale. That's when I realized that he was so badly injured. I hugged him tightly, and kept crying and saying I was sorry. He wiped away my tears with his hand, gently. "Don't cry, Poppy Ernest." Toby Jerry left the day after seeing me, and he didn't say anything to me when he left. It was also after this that those gaps were suddenly filled. Dad called and said no one had ever looked for him again. My world was completely bright, but only I knew what I had lost. I reached out to cover my eyes, feeling the dampness of the patch. Toby Jerry rolled over and pressed me down, and took my hand away. "Poppy Ernest, don't cry. I was wrong." He kissed away my tears tenderly. "Wait a few days. Will I accompany you to see my uncle?" I still cried. "Why did you leave back then?" I obviously didn't want to go abroad. He hugged me tightly. "What if you don't leave? Do you watch you run around all day?" "I can't do it, but I can guarantee that I won't leave in the future." He pressed his forehead against me. "Is it okay to get back together?" I cried and asked him. "Didn't we never say we broke up?" He kissed me, and his voice was gentle. "Well, no, actually, I've come back to see you secretly, more than once. How fortunate I am that the stars I lost for 4 years have fallen back to me." Towards the end of the year, Toby Jerry tricked me home. This man has his own house and does not live in it, and he crowds me every day. One night I deliberately teased him, and told him to go back to his house. And this man stared at him, and began to play stupid. "Ah, what a house! Isn't my house here?" Toby Jerry has received an offer from a company, and has been busy with work recently. On Saturday during the break, he pressed me and told me to take me to dinner, and I didn't suspect him, so I changed my clothes and followed him. Toby Jerry drove me back to his house, in a new car he had recently picked up. I didn't understand what was going on until I got out of the car, and Toby Jerry was holding me with a calm face, as he carried the gifts that had been prepared in the trunk. I subconsciously struggled for a moment, and Toby Jerry was dissatisfied. "What's the matter? Doesn't the ugly daughter-in-law want to see her in-laws sooner or later?" "No, I'm worried that your parents might not like me very much." Toby Jerry stared at me. "If my parents still insist on keeping us separated, are you going to leave me?" In a word, I suddenly calmed down. Now there is no reason for us to separate, no matter how difficult it is. I will hold his hand tightly. The door opened, and Toby Jerry's parents were standing in the doorway waiting for us. I was so nervous that my palms were sweating, and Toby Jerry didn't let go of me the whole time. Toby Jerry's mom looked at our clasped hands and sighed, then looked at me and smiled. Poppy Ernest, you're welcome. I was speechless as Toby Jerry put the gift in his mother's hand. Come in, hungry. This is a gift from Poppy Ernest for you. I said I wouldn't buy it. She had to buy it, and she couldn't stop it. We had dinner with the two old men, and at the end, Toby Jerry's mother asked, "When are you going to get married?" I blushed as Toby Jerry swiped his phone. Isn't this seeing my parents? Poppy Ernest will take me back to see my uncle in a few days, and we'll pick him up and see you again. I was speechless, looking at Toby Jerry sitting on the couch at night. I couldn't help but kick him. Tell me, was it premeditated? He grabbed my ankles, rolled over and pressed me, his eyes crooked. TSK, that has to be. I went back to see my dad after Toby Jerry's job stabilized, and the small street has grown rapidly in recent years. I mentioned it before, and asked him to move in with me, but he waved his hand and said that he couldn't adapt to it, so he still lived in the old house. In the past few years, I have come to see him during the holidays, and after returning the money, he found a class, and this year opened a small supermarket. On the way back, Toby Jerry was a little nervous as I amusedly watched as he squeezed my hand and tidied up his clothes. Before getting out of the car, I grabbed him and kissed him. Don't be nervous. My dad knows you. Toby Jerry is still a bit dumbfounded. He's been waiting for me to bring you home. Now it's time to wait. The end.